Hello, everybody, and welcome to another video of Keeping It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra, and today I am very privileged to have Mr. Tony Rodrigues. So if any of you are not familiar with Tony's story, there are tons of interviews and videos out there with a lot of details. There's also his book, which I will mention again at the end and have a link for his site. So Tony's story basically, from how I understand it, is he's a 10-year-old boy, goes to bed one night, and then he's abducted. And he's taken to places on Earth where he's enslaved, later sold, taken off planet, goes through horrific experiences, but then mind erased and wakes up in his bed again as a 10-year-old. Now, I know this sounds freaking Wi-Fi, sci-fi, crazy-fi to many who are listening to this for the first time. So I encourage you just to listen to what Tony's going to explain from that point forward. If you have questions, please like, subscribe, share, leave a message in the comment section, and listen to the other videos because it can fill in the gaps. So hello, Tony.
Hello. Hi.
So tell us a little bit about, everybody can get a lot of details elsewhere, right?
Sure.
But you jump in from where you think might be a good starting point, and then what it was like just to wake up at 10 and be going about your business, and then how it affected your life up until you actually got the memories, etc.
This is a great line of questioning. Thank you so much, Sandra, because nobody really asks that. People want to know, they're into the subject matter. They want to hear about what's going on up there, what I went through up there, and just, technical details. And so people don't ask me too much about the relationships I had or what happened after the aftermath of it all. And I think that that's significant because so many other people that have this happen to them, they don't get the memory recall that I was fortunate to get, but they have the same aftermath. You see the same kind of problems that arise afterward. So I kind of want to back it up a little bit for people that aren't aware of a 20-year career return program, or it's a technology that our government, and I'm in the United States, traded for extraterrestrials, life extension technology, and what they're able to take people for 20 years and have them work and serve in their programs and put them back literally only minutes after. So someone is taken at 11 p.m. at night out of their bed, like I was a 10-year-old boy. They can live for 20 years, and then they're put back at 11:30 p.m. back in their bed in the same body. So the medical process, William Tompkins, selected by extraterrestrials book, really explains how that goes. How, you know what I mean? Like, I won't go into that, but it really does explain that. There's a lot of other people that have come forward that explain the technology behind it. It sounds fantastical. There's time travel involved. There's age regression involved. These are huge terms to even throw out there. It would be strange if people weren't skeptical right off the bat. But nonetheless, that's what we're talking about. These are the technologies that have enabled this. We're talking about human slavery, humans being traded, and warfare that's going on with this technology. So that being said, after I experienced my life, there's a graphic where, my life till 10 years old, then I experienced 20 years, and then I went back to that, and then I experienced my life. I didn't experience both at the same time. Or everybody always asks the question, like, where you were gone for 20 years, what were your parents doing? I wasn't gone for 20 years for them. I woke up the next morning and went down and had breakfast after the abduction, after the night of the abduction, and I was lost. So even though I had no memory of the 20 years, at that point, when I woke up, I still felt like I hadn't been home in 20 years. The feeling of the passage of time was there. I was a 10-year-old boy. I remember waking up and looking out of my bed. I had a pile of toys on the floor, and they felt like I hadn't seen them in 20 years. And so I was taken on a Thursday night. So I woke up on Friday morning and went to school, went down and had breakfast. But that Saturday, the following day, that Saturday, which I have a picture of, coincidentally, my dad took a picture and it's in my book, but that Saturday I kind of sat and went through my toys, and it was like I didn't know what toys I had. I went to school and got lost in my school, which is not a great big school at the time. And so I asked that the teacher actually called my mom and said that I had amnesia and that I should have, because I asked to go to the bathroom and I didn't know where it was, and it was right across the hall. Because for me, the passage of time I didn't understand why at the time, but the passage of time was real. It had been, for me, it had been 20 years since I'd been there. But I went through my toys and I didn't remember them all, and I had no interest in playing with them anymore. I had been changed. I was a completely different person. I was a cocky, smart kid. You know what I mean? Like kind of an idiot boy, a 10-year. I was a 10-year-old boy. The day before and the day after, I was a broken person. I was somebody that was not emotionally all there. And in fact, for the next year or so, there were times when my dad would joke around with me and I would say something, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't make fun of that kind of thing. I would come back, instead of laughing with him, I would come back with doom and gloom. And he would often say, man, I don't know you're different. I don't know what happened to you. I want my son back. And he said that to me a few times that stuck out with me. And really, our relationship never recovered. My relationship with my father never really recovered after that. And there were a lot of bad things that like, I withdrew from school after that. I was a outstanding student before that, top 5% of the school. And the following year, I totally withdrew from school because I knew that there were other ways to learn. I remember the ways that they were teaching me in that, and I knew it was much faster, and I felt that schoolwork was just too slow and archaic. So I just completely withdrew. And I was a changed person. So during the duality, I want to say this too. This is something that I really look for in when I deal with other people that suspect that they've been in the same thing. There are tells, and there are common denominators that you look for. And what I always look for is an intake time, like a date, a year of when the initial problem or the initial contact happened. So everybody always has a beginning to their story, and I always try to nail down a date for that. And then if they're old enough, I roll it forward 20 years. I roll it and go, what happened in 20 years? Because during that time, I was very emotionally damaged. I did terrible things. I was not one of those. I was a very angry kid, and like I just couldn't keep a girlfriend. I wasn't there. I just wasn't there emotionally. All of a sudden, 20 years later in my life, when the other me that was existing up there, because we're on the same timeline, we were sharing, an existence. All of a sudden, at the end of that 20 years, when you roll the clock 20 years forward, one day I just snapped out of it all. And I woke, it was like waking up, and I felt like $1 million. And a lot of the problems I had, I was able to deal with all of a sudden. A lot of the things that would upset me the day before, the day after, no longer upset me. They were easy challenges. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I immediately, 6 months later, I met my girlfriend I got married to. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden, relationships were easier. Self-esteem happened. It was all easier. After that 20-year period, after that other person essentially was dead. And so that's one of the things I try to fish out when I work with people. I say, when did it start? Tell me your earliest memory. When did that start? I take note of that, and then I go, keep going, tell me more, and I try to figure out an intake. If they were in a program, they went in it. And then I look for that 20-year mark, because there's usually a personality change at that mark. And when you do that, and I tell people, they say, well, I think the intake was in 93. You know what I mean? And I go, well, what happened? Did anything odd happen in 2013, 20 years later? Did anything, odd happen in 2013? What happened? And they go, no, not really. And then they think about it and go, wait a minute. I got a divorce, and then I got a new job, and I felt like changed the career, and like their personality changes, because during that time, on some level, you're sharing a consciousness with yourself somewhere else. You're watered down in a way, you know what I mean? And just like the experience for me was, there were times when I was, I want to say around 17, when I got hurt badly in the programs. I got injured, that I felt it down here, like a twin like twins, one gets a broken arm and the other one all of a sudden has their arm tingle and they have a strange connection. Like I had that going on during those times. And it was only through making a timeline that I was able to go back and sort that out and go, wait a minute. I remember, when you make it a timeline, because researchers wanted in the beginning, they wanted me to put a timeline to it, because if you can't organize your memories in the time into when, then it's really not enough for a researcher to work with. That was kind of a requirement in the beginning.
Right.
And what I found is that it's really also a great way to figure out if people have even been participated. And I've worked with a lot of people since I've been public, since 2016, when I spoke publicly the first time. And a lot of people have contacted me. And what I've been able to fish out is that it's not specifically just the United States military, that there are many other programs and they're still locked on the same kind of the same framework of the phenomenon, that when people are taken for a great period of time, it tends to be in 20-year increments. Some people go for just like William Tompkins described, that there's some people go for 20 and then come back, and then 20 years later they go again and do a second one. And that's like a genetic issue. But
Right.
you can find those things. Nobody gets contacted with a one and done. Nobody just gets, you know what I mean? Like I saw an ET in my living room and it was hazy. I don't know what happened. The lights flickered and then I just woke up on my couch. I don't know exactly what happened. How many people say something like that? A lot. But it's never a one and done. There's always more. There's always more down the road if you ask.
Right. Well, I think most people are going to dismiss things they can't explain. And if they do try to explain it, it has such a twist of crazy that you don't want the backlash of all of that. So, to me, if something like that occurred, I would think, I need to just keep thinking about this for a while. And if it keeps coming back, then maybe it is true. Maybe I can confide in somebody that's not going to judge me. But, you're talking about, you didn't really live these lives simultaneously. Like when you were 20 over there, but yet somewhere consciously there was a separation, right?
I only have a theory. So this is something that I don't know for sure. I only have a theory that there was a cloning involved, that essentially they made a clone of me. And that makes sense, because the reason that makes sense is because when I woke up inside the program, my first day in the program, I had no memory of who I was. I didn't have memory of being taken, my mom, dad, sister, my family, where I came from in Michigan. I had all those memories. I had amnesia. And I lived for 20 years in those programs, and then at the end of it, when they put me back, I woke up, and this was in a base on the back of the moon. I woke up on a table back in my 10-year-old body, and I had no memory of the 20 years, and I had my memories back. It was as if they took my consciousness out of my body, put it in a clone, and then it lived for 20 years, and they put it back in time and put my consciousness back. And that way the memories were gone from the clone body that had lived that, and the memories were back still in place of mom and dad and where I came from. I still had my memories back. So that's why I'm only theorizing that, because I really don't know the process. I really don't. And so that seems like something that explains it, because the memories were deleted and then brought back. And it seems easier to just, you know what I mean? Like they definitely did have the technology to clone people and to grow a whole new body for the medical science to grow parts on you. You know what I mean? And then
Sure.
During that time, I have a few, I have a few things that are kind of unique to me. My eyes, I have green eyes and I have black hair. So it's not very super common among men. And I was the same person during that time. When I looked in the mirror, I saw my face and it was me. So it was an exact copy of me. It wasn't like a past life. The other thing is that this is fortunate. Like I said, this is fortunate because a lot of people are taken and they go straight into space. When they're abducted, they go straight to the moon and then on into one of the colonies and work their time in space for whatever job. But I was on Earth and I found the place in Seattle, and the music was the same. So there were songs that came out in the 80s that I'd already known. I knew the words to the first time I heard them. And so to me, it was the experience. Like, this is an old song. I remember driving with my brother and like an Aerosmith song came on. I said, man, this is an old song. And he said, dude, this came out last week.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I said, this song is years old. This is like, I heard this like 10 years ago. And he was like, no, man, this song just came out, literally. And that experience was, it's like a clue to what I went through, because like I said, when you go through a surgery, you just go to sleep and you wake up, you have no idea what the surgery entailed.
Exactly.
And the experience was kind of like that. So I was taken, I had procedures done, and I know the net result of it, and I have the memories, and a lot of things have checked out and supported it. So I've been able to convince myself. I lived in denial of it. In the very beginning, I was just terrified because everything came back all at once, and I had all these memories that made sense. And the more I thought about them, the more memories filled in. Like that's how memories work. Is you're not right now, you're not thinking about your 16th birthday, for instance.
Right.
But now that you think about it, it goes through your head. Now that you have a quick memory of it, now that you think about it, now more details of that 16th birthday can come in. And that's how it happened for me. When I got those memories back, I started thinking about, wow, CERES, I was on CERES, the crater behind me. We flew over it. I always had a memory of flying over that crater. And then the more I thought about it, the more memories came. And at the time I was completely alone. I had no one to speak to about it. And it was a very, very hard time. It was a very hard time to process that. I knew I wasn't crazy. I'm a functioning person. I'm a normal, you know what I mean? Like lower middle class guy. And I was functioning. I don't have some kind of underlying mental problem. You know what I mean? I'm a pretty normal person. So I knew it wasn't some kind of psychosis, and it makes sense. So when I got with researchers and when I went places, it all checked out. During the time, like I said, in between 2000 and 2015, I kind of got my life together, but I was already off to a bad start from the original 20 years. And I was just living my life. I had kids, I had my daughters during that time, and bought my first house and was living. And so it was really a curveball in 2015 when I got the memories back. I didn't know what to do with it. And I was really overwhelmed with the amount of things that I remembered. And so I said to myself, I couldn't imagine myself. I'm a person that thinks about dying a lot. I think about dying a lot. I really do. And I don't think about it in a negative way. I'm not afraid of ending my life. I know it's going to happen. And I just want to end it. I always tell myself, like, if I died today, would I be happy with what I've done? Do you get what I mean? Like, I think like that.
But I think you also probably think that way because you know that there's other things out there.
I know it's not the end.
Yes.
Exactly. I know it's not the end. It's going to be the beginning of my next thing.
And
I just want to make sure that it's okay to myself, that I can live with it.
Yes. And, I think we should think that way regardless. But a couple things you were saying is when you were talking about the Aerosmith song, many of us would chalk that up as like a deja vu type thing. And how do you explain a deja vu? It's a different timeline, been there, done that. Now let's fast forward just to the last couple of years with so much more information coming out, also with people's energy, evolving and consciousness expanding. I myself experience it all the time. I've been there, done that. But I came in a little awake. So I've always known things weren't quite the way they are here on Earth. I never could explain it. I just had to fall in line of one of 5 kids and go through life sort of being the observer, but yet being in a physical body. Did I experience what you experienced? No, but I've had other things go on that I'm aware of, other things happening. I know, like, it was in past life regression in the 90s that some stuff came back to me. And, I continued on, went into my healing work, and actually later became a regressionist. But I've studied many different modalities of it. But then Spirit had me develop my own way of doing sessions. And I have clients who will, for some reason, have gone through therapy or other modalities or channelings or whatever. But when they get with me, they know it just comes on. And I had one that immediately remembers as a child being taken up on a ship, and blah, 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 blah. And I, as the practitioner, have to balance a lot of energy and keep holding it there for them. But this is a little different than what you experienced. but at the same time, it's traumatic. So even though like clients will say, I kind of remember a little of that, but then I wasn't really sure, but this was like vivid, reliving it right then and there. So I got a lot of details. So we're able to walk through it. We're able to walk through the situation and know that we're safe. We're just there almost going back into a movie and watching it, you know? So a lot of things become technicolor. Doesn't make the trauma any easier, because now it becomes, wow, this really occurred. Now I've got to work with that. And I remember listening to one of your shows about, you know, when you went back to do all your research and do your book, and in my mind, is like, wow, I just can't even imagine going back in there and having to drudge all that up, because it's so in the emotional body that it's like you just want to run from it because it's so intense. And I'm sure you went through all of that.
Still do. It's still very hard. I did a book signing at a library yesterday down the Connecting Consciousness group through that for me here in Michigan. And they were like, will you read a chapter out of the book? And I said, sure. And I read the chapter of why I named it Cavalier, CERES Colony Cavalier. I read that. And it got into, you know, like a reconditioning program. That's something that I went through. And for me, as you know, I quit reading it because I started to relive it. Like talking about traumatic events, I found that talking in this format with, you know, just me and you, it's just me and you.
Yes.
I mean, people are watching. I mean, I'm not discounting you guys, but it's basically you and I talking. And if we talk about traumatic events or something that I went through, it's much easier because it exists to me. You know what I mean? I said the words and you heard it and you remember it, and that's it. But when you put it on paper, it has a new home. It exists. It's real. And maybe it's a different part of the brain that connects the words. I don't know. But I'll tell you, when I read it or when I write it, it was very damaging. I have to relive the emotions connected with it.
Yes.
When I talk about the trauma, it's not the same. And you know, it was very difficult. It is very difficult to relive it. I'm happy the book's done, because the writing process, well, it took me almost 7 years for that reason, because I would talk about difficult things and I had to put it down for weeks at a time just to recover, because I relived what I went through. I went through a great deal of trauma through the 20 years. You know, and I like to say, I mean, deep inside, I know that me remembering and speaking about it is a form of revenge. Because there were times when they were doing bad things to me, and I said, you can't do this. You can't treat people like this. Why are you doing this to me? I said this. I remember that they were operating on me with no anesthetic. And their answer, it was very, very cold, very robotic. And they said, their answer was, you're not going to remember it anyway. So we're not going to waste any resources on your pain control, because, you know, on blocking the pain, we're not going to waste it. We're not even going to waste it. You're not going to remember this. So I had to suffer. And that was something that was repeated. That was the modality. That was the thing. Like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to remember this. You're a slave, get to work kind of thing. You're not going to remember this anyway. And so remembering it was my revenge upon them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm proof that people do remember it, that they're wrong. That's proof. And getting the book out and doing these interviews, that's proof. That's you know what I'm saying? Like, that was my kind of only kind of empowerment that I could have over that. Can I stop these? Can I stop what's going on? No. Do I have a voice in what's going on? No. But I did remember all the times they told me I wasn't going to remember, all the horrible things they were doing to me. And there's a lot I probably still don't remember, to be honest. You know, I'd like to say that I remember 75% of the time, but you know, I got it out there and I let, you know, history know, hopefully. And then a lot of interviews have disappeared. I've done over 250 interviews, you know, hour, 2 hours a piece, and more than half of them are gone now off YouTube. So for whatever reason, whether YouTube did it or the people took their interview down, it doesn't matter. The information can go away. So that's why I'm especially proud that there's a book out now, that there's actually people have a tangible, you know what I mean, script of what happened. So that's a little bit harder to get rid of for them.
Yeah, I mean, we also know in the last couple of years, you can go into any search engine and what was there 5 years ago isn't there now, or it's been, right. And that's insane. But you know, you're lucky you didn't wind up in juvie a few times, because I mean, it's tough enough being a 10-year-old, having all your friends and then going through the high school stuff and then, sifting through your 20s. I always say we don't know crap before we're 30, really, truly. We're just sifting through life happening to us. But then to have traumatic events, and I think about, people that I know or clients that, have gone through early, sexual abuse and then suppressed it. And then it comes up and watch the horrors of that therapy, go through it. I just can't imagine, because you were in front of beings that weren't human. You were, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
scary.
when we get a disclosure, God willing, soon, your first ET in person is going to be is a traumatic event.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the equivalent of looking at your animal or a pet that's probably smarter than you, and that's a traumatic thing. That's a traumatic event. So for everybody, that's going to be the case. A lot of sexual abuse. It's funny because a lot of the experiencers that got their memories back tend to have sexual abuse in their past. So maybe that's something that enables the memory recall. That's my theory, because a lot of people that have come forward, behind the scenes, they admit that they've had sexual abuse at a young age, and maybe there's a compartment of the brain that you know what I'm saying, that the memory blocks that they do doesn't address. You know what I mean? That gives access to the memories that were supposedly blocked or deleted, and maybe that's something that enables it. But it's very common. It's very common.
So you are working with others to identify if they've been part of this program or they've experienced other things. So you're able to go through sort of a checklist to help them. And so what would you say to like other people out there that are listening, if they have a spouse or a child or someone that they know something's just not right, or maybe a few of the things that you have said or in your book or in other interviews, maybe just a smidget of that just triggers a little bit about someone they know. What would you suggest they do? Because nobody wants to like, oh, let me go down this rabbit hole. Because next thing you know, if it was me, it would be like, oh, well, you're the ant that's outcast now.
Right.
You're crazy. What would you say to people?
Well, I say different. I kind of judge where they're at, and I have a bit of a questionnaire that I go through, like, how old are you? When were you born? What do you do? What's the problem? And a lot of recall, because some people, I don't think that recalling trauma is actually the healthiest thing. Some people are reaching out to me that have a traumatic event. It's rare, but there are people that I recommend that I say, it's good. Just like regressionists. So you're talking about higher self, putting people in touch with their higher self. And, the saying is that somebody will go get a hypnotic regression exactly when they need it, exactly at the right time, because their higher self calls them to it, And I feel the same way about a lot of traumatic stuff. So when you see behavior patterns that keep manifesting, so there are people, I'm a big fan of just keeping track of when and what, like bad dreams, that's your subconscious manifesting something. And sometimes in the dream, I think people make the mistake of taking dreams literally all the time, where your dreams you may be dreaming about one thing, but your subconscious is really telling you a different thing. And so
Yes.
I recommend hemisync to people like that. To do the hemisync, and you actually get clearer dreams that are more, you can understand your dreams a little bit better by doing hemisync a couple, 2 or 3 days a week, and for a while, and then just kind of going into a state of mind. So there's a meditative version of dealing with that stuff. It just depends on the trauma. Like but ultimately I'm a guy that deals with people that had contact with ETs or a secret space program. Like that's ultimately what I do. But other people I've worked with, because my memory technique. So I'm gonna take a minute and explain how this works, because you said you're a regressionist. So my memory technique, I'm a big fan of hypnoregression, and I'm also cautious of it. I don't recommend it to people. Hypnoregression is to be respected as a major event in your life. It's not something that people want to go to it like they're going to get, like to a massage parlor. It's not that. That's not what it is. It's a very big thing. And,
Yes.
you're talking about.
And you're not one and done.
That's right. Well, some regressionists feel that way, that they feel that it's one, and now you can just talk to your higher self from now on. And so, and I don't know enough about it to do that, to say that, but what I have known is that some people go and get absolute hack jobs from it. So there are not all regressionists are the same skill level, for one. And so if people just bounce into that, you actually make an imprint of these buried memories that can be scrambled. And so now you've gone to a regressionist that led you in the wrong direction, and these scrambled memories are now permanently fixed in your subconscious as positive as what happened.
Yeah.
And you're seeing hack jobs of people that actually have contact, actually have trauma, or, you know what I'm saying, been in space, but their memories are kind of it's even worse now, and they come to me for help, and there's nothing I can do. So what I learned in the beginning, I got my memories back. I got most of the spiky moments, the times I got punched in the eye, times I fell in love, my first kiss up there. Do you get what I'm saying? Like big moments. Those are the first memories that came. Big emotional moments, those came first. Then they filled in after that, you know what I mean? The scenes, but other things I couldn't remember still in the beginning. I know that I went to the bathroom. I know that I showered. I know that I brushed my teeth, and I know that I got haircuts. I was up there I was on CERES Colony behind me. This rock behind me, there's colonies underground all through it, towns through it, 250,000 people live in there. And I was there for about 12 years. So I know that there was a bathroom, for instance, and I couldn't remember it at the time. And so I was like, I really got to figure this out, because how can I remember all this other stuff and not remember the basic? There was food. What did I eat in the morning? Where was my clothes at? And I started to kind of just think about it, dwell on it. And what I learned was that the same technique that you do when we go, Sandra, remember that song? Remember when we saw each other last summer and we were listening to that song? What was that song we were listening to? And you go, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can think of it. That song is on the tip of my tongue. Let me think about it. And we sit there and we flex our brain. It's a muscle, and it gets tired, and you go, whatever, it'll come to me. And 30 minutes later, you go, it was the Beach Boys. Remember that? And it just comes to you. It just comes to you. You're not even thinking about it. And that memory comes back. And then all of a sudden, we remember dancing to the song, and we remember the words to the song, and we remember everything else that happened. My technique is based on the same thing. Just a quick meditate and dwell on a keystone memory, and then let go for the day. And then if nothing happens, then do it again the next day, and then let go, and then take a day off, and then do it again. And what I found is that people that have repressed memories, memory blocks, you really can break the shell, but you have to have your subconscious, you have to give your subconscious, your mind, time to relax.
Yes.
People always want to sit and dwell on it. They dwell on it all day
Right.
long. Why can't I remember this? They took me, what happened next? All day long, and they obsess about it, and they never sit down and go, you know what, I'm just going to go on my lawn and not think about it. That's when the memories come back, when you quit thinking about it. I don't know why, I don't write the rules, but that's just what happened. And I was able to do that and remember that we had disposable toothbrushes. We had a 30-second shower with a chain that we pulled that gave the water, and the next guy went. Then my clothes were hanging on a hook. That I had a cafeteria after I got dressed, that I walked out right before the train stopped. There was a cafeteria where I ate my breakfast, and there was a barber right where we got our collar put on outside the gate, that there was a barber there. And when our hair was too long, they would send us over and I would get a haircut. And I was not allowed to have facial hair during my time on CERES Colony. I was able to get all those memories back. I remember the smell and the taste and everything. And it was by building and prying my way into keystone memory. So many people I worked with came at me with that I couldn't follow up, like it was hard enough to, like I'm just a scatterbrained kind of guy these days, and I'm not geared to this. And even though I do charge people money for consults nowadays and for the memory course, I'm really not a professional either. It's just because so many people got at me, I couldn't keep up with everything. So we made a memory course, and I really recommend the memory course for somebody that has an existing memory that wants to go get a regression. I think they should do my course, and I think they should do those exercises for a couple months and then go get a regression. Do you get what I'm saying? Like I feel like it's a good basis for that. I am a big fan of hypno-regression. There's some very talented people out there that do it. It's very effective. However, it can be wrong. You know what I mean? Like it can be messed up. And so for that reason, it has to be, it's like a tattoo. You don't go to a guy that just bought a tattoo gun. You should go to the guy that's been doing it for years, that has a great deal of artwork, and treat it with respect. So I get a lot of good feedback from the memory course. There are some people really get leaps and bounds that come from it. And that's really all they need. And they use that technique, and I never hear from them again. They start getting memories back and they go, thanks. And then that's it. And then some people have a tougher time, and I'll work with them a little bit. And some people can only get a couple of things back, and they run into a wall. And what I found with that is, when you think about me, so I lived my life. You asked me about my life here on Earth after the event, after 10 years old. So I was Tony. What I do to organize it when I work with people, and we establish that they were in a program. So there are many people that go, look, this definitely, you were involved. There's enough here. You were in a program, and it looks like you did a 20-year tour. What I do is I call them by their middle name. What's your middle name? And if it's, say it's David, I say, well, we're forever going to call that guy that was in space David. And we're going to call you. You know what I mean? Your first name, so that we can establish, because we have to treat David with respect. So my nickname when I was up there towards the end, they called me Jerry, Geri, Jerry. The German word is gerusted, for being burnt. So then the nickname Jerry stuck, and they called me Jerry. So Jerry was a separate person from Tony. So I have my own experiences and my own things that I lived through. And Jerry had his own experiences and his own things that he lived through. And his decisions need to be respected. So people that have been in the programs, that other person up there may not want to be remembered, and put a lot of energy into thinking like, I want to forget this stuff. This is terrible. I'm not this person. Many people said that to me up there. I'm not this person. You're living in a military service under almost like a time of war sort of authority. And so people do things, they're made to do things they wouldn't do. The culture up there, because everybody knew they were going back and not going to remember it, the culture was a little bit more hedonistic, if you understand. Like, they were free to do things. They were free to do things up there that they would never do down here, because it was you're not going to remember it anyway. Do you remember? See where that phrase can really do damage to somebody's psyche, to their soul. And so people behaved in a way that they didn't want to remember the person. They knew that they were better off down here. So when they come down here and they start to get the memories back, they run into a wall, because really it's their own subconscious saying, look, quit. You don't need to remember this. You don't need to remember this. You don't want to remember this. And I've found that, and I say, I don't know definitely if that's the case with people, but I suspect it is the case with many people, especially when they fish out a few memories and it's something dark. You know what I mean? They start to remember something. I was in a battle somewhere, like there's very traumatic things that can arise, possibilities can arise when you're talking about being in the space programs.
Sure. And, if you just think about it, kids, birth to 7 are pretty much in that theta state, that theta up to, the alpha state. And it's, which is why so many children don't remember half the things. But I try to tell them, it's like a movie camera's on 24/7. And it's all being stored in your 95%. You're not always going to remember everything. It's just like you can walk into a room and intentionally scan it, and then 10 minutes later have somebody ask you what's in the room, and you'll miss half of what you just saw. But if you go into a meditative state and 3D it, walk back through it, you'll remember more. And that's just letting that gatekeeper, that bouncer, take a longer lunch break between the conscious and the subconscious mind, to let you remember it. There's some things that aren't that important to remember. But then there's things that, if they're affecting your behavior and your life as you grow older, they need to be looked at. But you have to be willing to step into that arena, because it is an arena. It is an arena of rehabilitation and healing. And you got to be willing to get through those tough parts. And not everybody is ready to do that, So.
Right. Or, and you're talking about their higher self, some other part of them that actually has a great amount of decision-making power for them, that in their best interest. So it's not for everybody. I feel like, if somebody asks me, like, should I remember this stuff? My answer is always going to be yes, because you're already here asking me about it. And for myself, it's been great therapy. I have a lot of baggage from what I went through. If you read the book, you'll be disgusted by many things. I have a lot of baggage from that. I really do. And
Oh,
there are things that I'm not going to outgrow. And I'm aware of that, but the many things, I had many problems that I just didn't know what caused them because I didn't remember it. So once I remembered and I could put my finger on why I'm claustrophobic, why I'm afraid of small places, then it went away. It disempowered it. The other thing you touched on it earlier was that you can go back into your memories and then empower yourself and relive them. And I've dabbled in it a little bit, but instead of, remembering being soaking wet and freezing with your teeth chattering on the floor, you can go back and remember, what I mean? That's that memory as being warm and comfortable on the floor and with a view kind of thing, and just kind of ease that and give your subconscious a break. And
yeah.
so I went in and did a little bit of that. So, again, these are things that are not for everybody. It's each individual needs to sort this out for themselves. But the reality is many thousands of people have been taken and are participating in this, and it doesn't have to be the cream of the crop. They're not all doctors and lawyers. People that are in prison are taken. People in general are taken. They've used slave labor to build out the colonies into the solar system and beyond for the last 100 years. And a great deal of us have participated and are completely unaware of it. And people are getting triggered when they hear this information, which is good, because talking about it and exploring it and fixing it is how we fix it and how we move past it. You know what I mean? These are things, a 20-year extension on your life should be a blessing. It should be a great thing. You should be able to go for 20 years in the same exact manner that I went and learn a career, and then go back to being 10 years old or 15 years old and then live your life and be that better off. And some people are doing that. You know what I mean? The military does, a lot of people are participating in these programs, and they don't get their memories erased. They go up there and they do get a professional career, and they make friends, and they come back and they remember everything. And some people even get a paycheck, I imagine. But this is how it should be for us. This is an important thing for humanity, and we should all be able to participate in a healthy way.
Yes.
And so we're just in the early days of it. That's all it is. We're in the early days of the future.
Well, I just have to applaud you, because I just can only imagine what it was like to even remember any of that, much less go back and relive it through all of that. And, people can look and hear this information and say, hey, listen, he spoke up. I'm not all alone in the corner. Everybody's thinking I'm crazy. Maybe these things did, link together to an experience that I don't remember. So I think, you coming forward, it really will help others be able to just think, did this happen to me? Did this happen to someone I know? And that's what really prompted me, not only because of some of the work that I do, but some of the people I know who I think have been affected by this. And I didn't want to come on here and just do a regular interview of asking you all the detailed questions about, everything that went through on the 20 years, because even that leaves people with questions, because each interview is different, and it's different part of that 20 years, and nothing's in chronological order, which is your book is. So that will help people. I really wanted to come at it from, okay, now you wake back up in the morning and what happens moving forward, and you've kind of explained that. So I think people need to hear it from that angle.
I've had a lot of people, I can't say a lot. I'm not going to use the word a lot, but I've had people that contacted me after they read the book. And even though they didn't go through anything like an abduction event, they did have trauma in life that they touched on, something similar to things that happened in the book. And they had major triggering events, like major breakdowns where they had to really sort themselves out. And I feel it's good for that. And, I guess problems like that shouldn't be ignored, and they should be talked about and dealt with. And talking is a very good therapy, as long as you have somebody you fully trust to speak
Absolutely.
to. And people have been triggered by the book and say, look, man, I read your book and I cried. I broke down crying. And you know what I mean? I thank you for what you went through, and thanks for sharing it, because it's caused me to deal with problems that I didn't really know bothered me that much, because nobody talks about stuff like that. And so, I got to say, I'm a little bit honored. I'm a little humbled by that. That wasn't the intention, or I didn't even think
No.
that was going to be a result of the book. I just kind of wanted to get it off my chest. It is a luxury thing to say to people now, like when they go, tell us about your story. I'm like, well, I wrote the book for that. There's like you said, the chronological order is in the book. So now I
Yeah.
can just kind of defer to that instead of telling it over and over again. So it's my
Yeah,
hope that
and I think people need to hear anytime someone's experienced something, you hope that they'll instruct or give or teach about their experiences so other people don't go through as much of that, or how to maybe avoid the potholes in order to get to some healing,
to see that there
And
is a life at the end of it all. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and that was really my whole purpose of wanting to do this interview with you, was to come at it from a whole different spin. And if people want to know more about it, they can go watch the other videos and they can get your book, which again will have in my link to your website. And like you said, I think the meditation course that you have will help anyone go through some things. And if worst case scenario, they go through something and it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. I'm good. But it teaches you to be able to get in there and find some resolution.
I think that I'm still shocked that there's as much need for people to deal with the traumatic event. You would think that, we're kind of given the sanitized thing of how the world is, that, nothing bad happens and everything's great. Everybody has all enough for everything to do. Like that's the material, that's the media face of everything. Everything's fine. Nothing bad happens. And, that's not the case. Everybody has a little bit of something bad, misfortune. And so we have to deal with it. We have to talk about it. We have to have healthy coping mechanisms for when things don't turn out the way we expect them to.
Yes.
And I guess I'm morphing into that guy. I'm morphing into that,
Well, we're forever hopefully growing and evolving. I mean, life would be pretty boring if we didn't, right? But you're also talking about generations that you and I were raised in, where you didn't share emotion. There wasn't a lot of therapy available. You didn't talk about a lot of things. You got teased by siblings if you did. It's like, get over it, get up, fall off the horse, get up back on it. It's like, could I just take a minute to dust myself off and talk to this horse again before I actually get back on it? There wasn't any of that. Everything was just throw in the back of the closet, and you were supposed to go on and get your life going. That's on anything that happens, not, belittling what you went through. I'm just saying in general for people.
I look at a lot of habits I have that are really self-destructive. I put everything else first before me.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the kids these days that really do put themselves first. And your first instinct is to scold them or say, look, I didn't do that. But really, I look at it as something that I was unable to do. I wasn't taught to do. And I feel it's a gift for young kids nowadays to go, wait a minute, I'm not available to do that much. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm just not going to do that. And I feel like I feel like that's something I wish I had at a younger age, but I was taught to just, get on with it. Just
stuff it.
Yeah. Just quit complaining and get after it. And you guys, and work 7 days, 12 hours a day and get it done because that's what you've got to do. And so I'm seeing a break of it. I feel the kids nowadays are being led, you know what I'm saying, invisibly against their, without them knowing it. I think the media changes them in ways that they're unaware of, but I do see a lot of them with very positive things too. I really have a great deal of hope for the people coming up now. And, I'm very hopeful. I'm very optimistic. I do believe that in the next few years, we've already had some disclosure about UFOs, the UAP disclosure. And in the next coming years, especially around the moon missions, the manned moon flights, I feel that we're going to get some disclosure. I'm really hopeful that happens and that things are changing positive, because everything is so energetic right now too.
Yeah.
The world is, you know what I mean? People are feeling things, that there's people are doing crazy things that they never were. And it's not, back in the day, you could blame it on drugs or alcohol, but it's not like that now.
No.
There's a lot of high energy things that are going on, and people are kind of ebbing and flowing these days. So, I'm always hopeful that a new beginning is a positive thing.
Yeah. And, I work with kids. So I have children that literally have not lost their memories, just basically coming into this incarnation. So I'll hear things about Saturn, about the moon, about the God cloud. I'll hear all kinds of interesting things. And I can't ever, I have to stay very neutral while they're just telling me the stories, and just keep, because I'm still working on this, being the bridge between this age and moving older and not losing those memories, So Spirit's still designing a lot of what I do, and a lot of it's based on feeling and experiences and listening, and just having someone that can just be neutral and just listen to your story, and, not have anything, too many opinions about it. And by the way, opinions are not like a-holes, because not everybody has one. That's what I say. They have millions of them.
Millions of them.
Exactly.
That's right.
Well, listen, I will let you go, because I know you have so many more interviews to do. And, let's give this some thought about maybe elaborating on how we can help kids on another interview. And I will have your links. And I feel like the best place to get your book is just to go to your website, explore the website, look at the course, order the book from there.
Yes.
And then see whatever else Tony's got going on.
So we're beginning a second book, which is not going to be a chronological story. It's more like a collection of short stories that pad out questions from the book and other things. And so that's underway. But I would say that because the book, what I've learned is, because the book it came out January 1st, and it's been #1 in its category for 4 weeks now. But what I found is that if you go to just the Amazon link and put in CERES Colony Cavalier, people are saying, man, they're shadow banning your book. We can't see it. And I got a hold of Amazon, and that's perfectly normal. You've got to click the books link. So if you go to Amazon and then you click books and then put CERES Colony Cavalier, it's like the second or third one that'll pop up. There's actually quite a lot of books about CERES, like fiction books about CERES from back in the day. I want to buy a couple and read them just for the fun of it, but it is in there. The link on my website works great for people in America, people, around the world. It's like Amazon has a different link for people in France, for instance, but it is in there. If you click on books and find it, CERES Colony Cavalier. And I'm very proud of it. I'm happy that we got her made, because I really had there was a very real moment just last year that I thought, man, I'm never going to finish this book. And there was a barnstorm to get it done. Like, I've got to finish it now or never. And so it's for me personally, it's like a big thing for me. So I'm very happy. And it's gotten great reviews, and people are telling me that it means a lot to them, people that have read it. So, and it's an easy, fast read. It's big letters and big spaces. So you don't
need your bifocals to read this one.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I insisted on that. I kind of insisted on that because I don't see very good either. So
yeah, it's that age thing. And then Tony, what's your website? And of course, I'll have these links in the description as well.
Sure. It's TonyRodrigues.com. It got a makeover. I used to have a bunch of other info like CIA documents and physics books and things on there, but it's got a makeover. It's got a link to my Patreon channel, Talks with Tony. A lot of my interviews were getting deleted, so we made a paywall. It's only $5 a month. It's a great show. That's on there. I come out with shows weekly. There's 3 tiers on there. There's a lot going on, and we have focus groups on there. It's really doing well. There's like almost 300 people, patrons, watching it. That link is on there, and then there's a link to the memory course. You can contact me. There's a link to email me, and then there's the link to the book and a bio and link to my very first interviews with Dr. Sala, and a list of free interviews that I've done. Probably 50 of them on there. There's a lot of information on there in a small site. Jackie Kenner, who has been my partner working on this, he helped me with the book, and she's a very smart person. And she helped me with the website. She did a phenomenal job. She's been a blessing as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So TonyRodrigues.com.
Okie dokie. And I'll make sure that that's in the description as well. So thank you so much, Tony. And viewers, please like, subscribe, and share this video, as well as make comments. And go to Tony's website and his Patreon channel. And by all means, get his book. And then you'll be able to fill in the blanks from anything you might have missed. All right. Have a great day.